This is a story about chasing dreams. The sort of dreams that transform themselves into a long, hard struggle before transforming themselves into a beautiful reality. This is a story about searching for knowledge and wisdom, the sort of knowledge that can only be taught through schools and books, and the sort of wisdom that can only be learned through life and through all of its adventures. But most of all, this is a story about having faith and maintaining hope. The sort of faith that grows itself in the face of every challenge, and the sort of hope that maintains itself through the most testing of times. The most testing of times. How many of you remember the crash of 2008, the financial meltdown? Well, that was the year I was getting ready to step into the real world. I was getting an honors degree in economics from McMaster, and the title of my thesis was Death of the Mall: How E-commerce is Shaping the Future of Retail. During the course of my research, I came to a realization that was besides the point as far as my thesis was concerned, but one that was very relevant to the rest of us. You see, by 2008, a majority of us were living online. We were shopping online, banking online, working online, learning online. And we were even doing some things online that I can't quite mention because there's a high probability that my mother might watch this. But you name it, and we were doing it. We had the science all figured out, and there was no shortage of great ideas just waiting to be tested. The internet was bursting with content. And yet, despite the pace of the growth of the internet, or perhaps precisely because of it, we got too focused on the science and neglected the most important part: the human experience. We made our websites crowded, we made them cluttered, we made them confusing, and by doing all that, we made them ugly. I read a quote somewhere that said, "Fashion is what seems beautiful now, but becomes ugly later." Art may seem ugly at first, but becomes beautiful later. It was about time we understood that the way we were designing our websites was synonymous to stale fashion, and that someone needed to begin creating art that would become and remain that beautiful later. The world needed a new philosophy on web design, and I thought I could deliver it. But how would I do it? I was solving the problem from an end-user perspective. I had no technical expertise, so I would definitely need a team and the finances to run it. I also knew that soon after I graduate, I would have to take on financial responsibilities towards my family, who were still in Pakistan. I was 24. I'd only been in Canada for the 4 years that I'd been at McMaster. It was 2008. Banks weren't lending, and even if they were, being both a recent immigrant and a recent graduate, I did not have the credit or the collateral to get a loan. And yes, I had friends, lots of them, but they were all students or recent graduates themselves, so they were just as broke as I was. So I needed capital, and I needed to work for it. Like most of us, driving is a subconscious act for me, which meant that any job related to driving would not only pay me, but would also allow me to think my own thoughts simultaneously. So one day, I walked up to a cabbie in Toronto and asked him what his take-home income was. He said $4,000. I compared that to what recent graduates were getting paid and told him he's lucky to be making that much. He said that this is nothing. Cabbies in Fort McMurray make $10,000 a month. I said, Fort McMurray? He wrote it down for me. I came home, Googled it, and within a month of that conversation taking place, I arrived in Fort McMurray on November 1st, 2008. With no car, no job, 1 month's rent for a room in someone's basement, and $200 in my pocket. Oh, and a dream. A really big dream. On my first day here, I got 2 jobs. Every morning, I would take the 7 a.m. bus to City Hall, and then, to save $1.25, in minus 45, I would walk for half an hour to the bank that I worked at. Now, in case some of you are wondering what someone looks like after walking for half an hour in minus 45, Here's a picture of me after one such walk. Notice that the sun is out and there is no snow on my jacket, so what you see is my breath frozen across my face. But in any case, when the bank would close, I would walk across the street to my second job, which consisted primarily of flipping burgers and wiping dinner trays. When that would close, I would take the last bus back home around 11 p.m. I worked 7 days a week, and within a month, I managed to buy an old beat-up car for $1,840. And when I say beat up, I mean this thing had a rusted roof and a cracked windshield. So every time it would rain or snow outside, I was sure to enjoy the weather inside. But that didn't matter. I was just happy to not have to walk. And now I could get a driving job. So I quit flipping burgers and started delivering pizzas in the evenings while still working for the bank during the days. I did that for a few months until I resigned from the bank as well. I started using my days to continue my research and continued using my nights to deliver pizzas, pay bills, and most importantly, to dream. And then summer came. All the out-of-town university students came home and they wanted their pizza delivery shifts back. At this point, I did not have a company name, website, or even business cards, but I knew I had to make a move soon. So one fine day in July, I was driving to grab some food when I heard this ad on the radio, and it was for a flower shop. And I looked up ahead and to the left, and I actually saw the very same flower shop. And what's more, I saw a turn coming up. Now, even though my t-shirt was torn and I was still in my PJs, I remember everything inside me telling me to make that left turn. And so I did. I walked in, and before I even said anything, Dina, the owner, said, "Malik, are you ready to deliver flowers?" I'd asked her about the job earlier. I said, "No, Dina, but I'm ready to do websites." In our first official fiscal year, we did just over $100,000 in sales. But in our second official fiscal year, we did that a few times over. In 2012, we're partnering up in cities across North America, and our projected sales are in the multi-millions. But more importantly, we have some of the best programmers, researchers, and designers on earth helping us with our pursuit of building a more beautiful, more human internet. So people often ask me why I still choose to live and work here when I could now be doing the same in London or in Paris or in New York. Why Fort McMurray, they ask. Well, besides the fact that it has the best skyline out of all of those, Fort McMurray is home to some of the most bold, innovative, and inspiring people on earth. And they all share a spirit that I can relate to. It takes a certain type of person to survive and thrive the elements, the weather, the uncertainty, the recessions. Fort McMurray is a concentrated cluster of such individuals. If I could sum up the moral of this story and everything that I've learned from the people of this town in one sentence, it would go something like, dream big, follow your heart, and never give in. Thank you very much. Thank you.